Austin still remembers the yogurt shop murders because the crime destroyed a place that should have felt harmless, bright, and ordinary. On the night of December 6, 1991, 4 girls were inside an I Can't Believe It's yogurt store on West Anderson Lane in North Austin, Texas, just before closing time. 17-year-old Eliza Thomas and 17-year-old Jennifer Harbison were working that Friday night, and Jennifer's younger sister Sarah Harbison, who was 15, had stopped by with her friend Amy Ayers, who was 13. At about 11:20 that night, firefighters rushed to the shop after a fire was reported inside. When they got the flames under control, investigators found the 4 girls dead in a back room. The victims had been bound and gagged, and each had suffered a gunshot wound to the head. Detectives quickly believed the fire had been set on purpose because it looked like someone wanted heat, smoke, and water to destroy as much evidence as possible. The front of the store also suggested robbery because the registers had been disturbed and money was gone, but the level of violence made the scene feel much darker than a rushed theft. Austin police were suddenly dealing with a case that held several terrible possibilities at once, including robbery, sexual assault, multiple offenders, or a killer who knew the girls would be there. The fire made every part of that work harder because it damaged surfaces, blurred timelines, and left detectives arguing over which clues still meant anything. The murders shook the city in a very specific way because these were teenage girls at a part-time job and a quick evening stop, not people living risky or secret lives. Parents saw the story and understood that something random and brutal had happened in a place that looked completely normal from the outside. For years, the case moved through waves of hope and frustration while detectives chased tips, compared suspects, and tried to rebuild a scene that had been partly erased before the investigation truly began. In 1999, police arrested 4 men: Robert Springsteen, Michael Scott, Maurice Pierce, and Forrest Wellborn, after 2 of them gave confessions during long interrogations. Those confessions seemed powerful to many people at first, but they also raised serious concerns because parts of the statements were wrong, and other details had already been reported publicly. Even so, juries convicted Springsteen in 2001 and Scott in 2002, which made it seem as if the case was finally nearing an end. That sense of closure did not last, because newer DNA testing later showed that biological evidence from the crime scene did not match either convicted man. Prosecutors eventually conceded that the convictions could not safely stand, and the courts threw them out. By 2010, the charges against Springsteen and Scott had been dismissed, while Pierce and Wellborn were never tried. That reversal left the case in an even darker place, because it suggested that the system had come close to locking in the wrong answer, while the real killer, or killers, stayed invisible. It also forced a larger question into the open, because if the confessions were false, then what pressure, confusion, or fear created them in the first place? The case became a warning about how badly fire damage and public pressure can distort a search for truth when a city is desperate for closure. More than 30 years later, the Austin yogurt shop murders remain unsolved, and the central wound of the case has never really closed. The families lost daughters, sisters, and friends, and then they had to watch the investigation swing from devastation to hope to collapsed certainty. Police have continued reviewing evidence as testing methods improve, but every passing year makes witnesses older, memories weaker, and small missed details harder to recover. The hardest part of this case is that it never feels impossible to solve because someone almost certainly knows more than the public has ever heard. A person may remember a strange comment, an unexplained injury, a sudden change in behavior, or one detail that did not seem important in 1991. Somewhere behind the fire, the fear, and the failed confessions, the truth about those 4 girls is still waiting to be named. Anyone who wants more real dark investigations can follow for the next case.